Hey guys, and welcome to another rip-roaring session of CTA Live, Church Training Academy Live. In case we haven't met, my name is Dave Curley, and I'm the founder of Church Training Academy. And Church Training Academy is a place where we're building a website and a community for small and medium-sized churches to teach them how to use and exploit media and technology in order to change people's lives, to fulfill the Great Commission, to make a difference in each individual's life and as many lives as we possibly can. And that is something I am extremely passionate about. I've been doing live streaming and media production, video production, social media for 20 years, 25 years? I know, I'm losing track of time here. I started in video production in 1991, or officially doing it in 91, when I got to college, and we started producing a couple of live shows each week. We actually started doing television production like a week and a half before the school semester actually started. Really cool. Freshman year, I loved, hey, here's this $20,000 video camera, go out and do the interview with the mayor. What? That was awesome. Anyway, so did that all through college, got out, went to work for Microsoft, and then went to work for Dell, and in between there, I was still doing some video production and doing a whole lot of photography and graphic arts and all that kind of stuff. In 2000, I left Dell and started doing my own production company full-time, and then my largest client ended up hiring me on to do all the marketing and technical stuff, so I did all that. And then in 2008, I got back to doing production and marketing and video marketing and podcasting and live streaming and all that sort of stuff back in 2008. And since then, I have been in a constant state of production in one form or fashion pretty much every day since then. So I've had web shows and web live streams. I've done streams to, a few dozen to a few 100,000. I guess since 2011, I have been wanting to focus on the church media market, small and medium-sized churches in particular, and teach them how to do all the stuff that I've been doing for the past 20 years. Because medium and small-sized churches make up about, 80 to 85% of like all the churches. I mean, you hear about these mega churches, and there's probably a mega church in the metropolitan area, at least one in the metropolitan area that you live in. However, for every one mega church, there's hundreds of churches that have 250 people, or 175, or 75. Those are the folks that I want to reach, because at least in my experience, when I visit those churches, when I meet those people, when I do hear one of their sermons, some of the most rich, in-depth, extremely God-ordained Bible study and teaching can come from these places that no one's ever heard of. So initially, I wanted to make sure that those people had the ability to get their message out and get it into not only the hands of their congregation, but their friends and relatives and other people and all. We're, for good or for bad, we're living in a global society to a degree. We're still localized, we're still regionalized, but we have access to the information from all over the place. I have a new friend in India. His name is Joshua. He is watching the show from India. I've never met Joshua, at least not to my knowledge. Joshua, have we met? I mean, I don't remember ever meeting you at a conference or anything. If we have, good to see you again. If we haven't, then that's a perfect example. He found this. He's following the show. Over time, we're going to get to know each other. That's huge. That's wonderful. So because of that, we can get the information out anywhere. I am a guy in my basement in a town in the middle of Texas, and I'm broadcasting this message, these things that I've learned, I'm broadcasting them to you over the internet all over the world. Definitely in India, apparently. I'm amazed that I have a lot of people that are reaching out to me from Africa. The only people from Africa that I know are a few people from South Africa that I've met over the years, and the Nigerian families that have moved to the Metroplex and are members at our church. Dude, yet I'm helping to teach churches in Africa. That's awesome. The same thing can happen with a small church. You've got some of the best Bible teaching in the world happening in your small town or in your church, and you can now make it available to anybody and everybody. So you could be having remote Bible studies where the pastor is, or the Bible study leader. It doesn't have to be the pastor. It could just be the guy that's leading the Wednesday night Bible study or the Tuesday night men's Bible study or whatever. More people than just the handful that come can participate in these because of the technologies that are being democratized, which means the power of broadcast. The iron grip is being taken away from the major players, from the big broadcast companies, and being made available to anybody, including a guy in his basement in the middle of Texas, right? Including Toby Henshaw, who is our youth pastor for a small church of 650 people in the middle of Texas. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, that's what CTA is here to do, is to teach you guys how to do that. If you guys have any questions or are wanting to get any of the notes or the links or anything like that to this episode, you can go to churchtrainingacademy.com/004, because this is episode 004 of CTA Live. And I will have links to hardware and software and services and things like that that are a part of that. I wanted to tell you about a really cool resource called Spark. It's spark.adobe.com. It is from the folks over at Adobe. They're the ones that make Photoshop and the other Adobe products. And what they have is a series of templates and a little engine that allow you to easily make these pictures. You're able to choose a picture or upload a picture that you have, and they have a library that kind of goes out to the net and finds a whole bunch of stock photography that people have licensed into Creative Commons for use for things like that. So they tap into that resource, and with it you're able to put together a piece of art, basically, that you can post. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, is how to extend beyond the live event on Sundays, how to extend beyond the stream, and what to do with the content once you've created it, how to make the most of it. And one of the ways that you can do that is by using something like Adobe Spark, where you could take a still image of your pastor, or you could take a picture of a mountain or something like that, and then maybe overlay a quote that your pastor has said. Let me see. I'm going to try to make one for you guys real quick here. BibleGateway.com, and I'm going to look up John 3:16. So we're going to find John 3:16, and I'm going to copy this text. Okay? Now, I'm going to go over to Adobe Spark, and I'm going to click on the plus sign, and I'm going to make a post. And then it's going to ask me to type in what I want. Now, I could type anything in here. I could type in some pithy quote or what have you. In this case, I'm going to paste in John 3:16, and then I'm going to type in John 3:16. And I'm going to tell it what type I want to do. So which type of graphic size. It's got pre-done sizes optimized for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And there's a whole lot more, by the way, guys. So hit continue. All right, so it came up with a picture already for me, and it's also got some other suggested type filter styles that you could use. So let's just take a look at this one, and we're going to choose the background, and I'm going to replace it. If you have a Creative Cloud membership like I do, where you get like access to all the Adobe products, you can use, if you're using Adobe Lightroom and you got your Lightroom libraries and you've got them shared through Creative Cloud, you can then come in here and say, pull from my Lightroom library or through the files that I've shared through Creative Cloud or Dropbox or Google Photos or whatever. In our case, we're just going to do a find photo, and I'm going to do search for Earth. And let's see what we got here. Actually, it ain't Earth, but it sure is pretty. So there we go. So I've chosen that one. Now, I don't like that font color, so let's change the font color. That. Maybe that. And I can make an adjustment how I want it done. Move it over here. Let's see. Roll through some style suggestions. Look at that. That looks cool. All right, let's say that's it. We're done. Do I want to filter it a little bit? Let's see. Yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to go with. And then at that point, we hit share. And it's going to save it. We can put in whatever we want. We can share it publicly, or we could simply download it. And that's what I like to do. I like to download it and then turn around and upload it to Facebook or Instagram or what have you. On iOS devices, there is an app that is really easy to use. So you can do it straight from your phone. You can do it from your tablet. If you are on Android, last time I checked, they had not released an Android app yet for Spark. However, you can go to the website and do it all from there. So if you have an Android tablet or an Android phone, you can do it from there. Anyway, it's really cool. That's Adobe Spark. Spark.adobe.com. There's a link below. That is your tip, your tool of the week. That's what we'll call it. Tool of the week. That's what this segment is going to be called. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Now, let's get into today's topic. The stream is the beginning of the entire thing, not the end. That's a mindset that I want you to get into your head, okay? So much of what we do as ministers, as church staff, as church production teams is geared towards one thing, the event on Sunday, okay? That is what the focus is. Right now, my pastor is in his study at our church working on the sermon for Sunday, okay? Earlier in the week, he was making hospital visits. I know that because we were one of them. Toby, who is in the chat room over on YouTube, our worship pastor, he is getting things prepared for Sunday morning, for youth Bible study, for the church service. The kids minister is getting things ready for Sunday morning. Everything we do always has this focus on the 2 hours, the 2.5 hours of Sunday morning between about 9 a.m., 3 hours, and 12 or 12:30. Then if your church has an evening service, you're also focused on what's going on and what's needed to prepare for the evening service, right? If you're a larger church, you may have 2 or 3 services. So you're really focused. When we take a look at it from a streaming standpoint, as a production team, we are getting things ready for the live production, which means we're making sure we have our slides ready. We're making sure that we have the music tracks, the back vocals. You know, if you're singing with tracks and not a band, you're making sure that you've got the promotional videos for VBS and for children's camp and youth camp and all that loaded up into Pro Presenter, and you've got all the lyrics and stuff already and the slides and the motion graphics, and you're doing all that for that hour and a half that people are going to be looking at these things on our screens. And then once it's done, you're going home. And the whole cycle is going to begin again. When it comes to live streaming, that's not the end of the week. That's the beginning. The live event is the start of the conversation. We're having a conversation with these people. Now, the goal has always been to, initially with live streaming, to bring the live event to the remote viewers, okay? A couple weeks ago, I showed you a perfect example of that. One of the CTA insiders, their church members, are sitting there in their living room with a iPad, and they're watching the service from earlier that day. And they're able to participate in the live event as it's happening, right? Now, that's been the goal for getting a live stream. When I talk to people, when I ask, are you live streaming or have you considered live streaming and why do you want to live stream, the number one thing that everybody mentions right off the bat is to make sure that people who aren't there can be there, okay? So that's great. That is the beginning, I guess, of the conversation, or the beginning of the reason why you would want to do live streaming, okay? But it's so much more than that. The next step is basically, once the stream is over, you then want to reinforce everything that was done in the live stream until you get to the next event. if you've been watching me for the last few weeks here, I've been taking you down this little journey of live streaming. We've been focusing a lot on live streaming, and over time we'll focus on podcasting, and over time we'll focus on, publishing, physically publishing, or ebook publishing, or email marketing. I mean, we're gonna hit all this stuff. But right now we're working on live streaming, and I've been taking you down this path of why you would want to live stream and what you can do with it, and is it really worth it to live stream? Is it worth putting the time in? The different ways to live stream. You guys remember last week we were talking about the different modes of live streaming. Remember we talked about doing the selfie mode. We talked about indie mode. We talked about desktop mode, and we talked about broadcast mode. We talked about the different ways you would use it and why you would use this one versus this one. How you would use at any given time throughout the week. You would use selfie mode to sort of continue a conversation or bring people in behind the scenes, things like that, right? I've been taking you on this journey. We've been having this conversation about live streaming for the past several weeks, and everything has been put together to kind of reinforce and extend what you learned from last week, right? Same thing with your services. When you start a conversation about whatever the topic is, at our church it's on joy. We've been going over joy for 3 or 4 weeks. So when you're talking about joy, then the natural extension would be to, in the week, to maybe share some testimonies. Whether you're live streaming them or whether people are, whether the pastor just goes onto Facebook and says, show me some examples of just uncontrollable joy or ways that the Lord has brought uncontrollable joy into your life in the last 6 months. And then people can start relating stories. He's continuing the conversation that was started on Sunday, okay? Now, you can do that by using services and tools like Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and your email newsletter, Facebook, things like that. There's a whole bunch of different methods, I guess, that you could use to do that. And here's a couple of ideas. You could take your service and take one of the really poignant points that the pastor has brought, and try to trim that down to say a minute's worth of video footage, and put it out on Facebook. A very short video that someone can take a look at, learn something from, comment on, and then they'll be able to move on with their day. But that little point has been reinforced, and that's a point that he brought up earlier in the week. You can also do things like the baptism that we have here. That's my niece getting baptized. That right there is just a selfie stream happening from the baptistry in the moment while it's happening. As we talk about helping to define and build the culture or share the culture of your church, it's a good way for that to happen, a good way to show this aspect of the culture of your church. My buddy Joe Laughlin, one of the things that he does is grabs a frame from his service and takes a quote that he made during the service. It could be a bullet point or something like that, and puts it up on his website. Again, taking the conversation that you start on Sunday and continuing it throughout the week. But there's a content roadmap for continuing the conversation, starting with the live stream. So let's just look at this real quick. One of the things you can do is you could start by taking the recorded video and publishing it to your website. Okay, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? You are a couple of things need to happen. You could take one page of your website, and let's call it live, okay? If you go to churchtrainingacademy.com/live, you'll get to the page that is ctalive.com, where you've got the video embed from YouTube of the current live stream, whatever's happening, and then you've also got where you can sign up to get notified and a couple other things. You guys could do that on your church's website. If you go to mywonderfulchurch.com/live, they should be able to see a live production as it's happening, okay? Now, that is the live page, okay? So when it's live, it's happening there. When it is not, there's a thumbnail that says, we'll be starting, at 11 a.m. Every Sunday at 11 a.m. Something like that, or a slideshow or something, depending on the player that you're using. You can do all kinds of really cool stuff. Anyway, that's for the live page. That's where they can go and take a look at the event. You should take the recording of your service. And by the way, if you're not recording it, holy cow, you guys have got to be recording it. You're not just streaming it, okay? So no matter what the broadcast software you're using, you should be recording this thing. Do not rely on trying to download it from YouTube or download it from Facebook. Those should be like your backup plans, okay? Take the recording and trim it up a little bit. Now, at our church, we still got a DVD ministry. So each week I take the service and I get it, fix anything that was wrong with it, if there's an audio glitch or something like that, or the audio levels are kind of funky or something. And then I get it all produced and done and ready for a DVD, and then I hand her a DVD. When you're publishing this online, you have to remember that there's going to be two different types of audiences, and people are going to be using it for different things. So what I like to do is I like to make a video podcast and an audio podcast, okay? And I make two of each. So I'm going to make a version for iTunes and a version for YouTube. So let's talk about that. What YouTube doesn't have any kind of file size limitation or anything like that. So I take, a near master level quality of the entire service and, all of it. Okay, with the sermons in here, but then here's all this other stuff on both ends. And I will upload it. It could be a 6, 7, 8 gig file. I upload it to YouTube, and we have this wonderful, pristine YouTube version of the entire service. Then I can also take just the sermon out of there. Taking just the sermon provides a useful resource for people, I think, much more than the entire service. You got an entire worship service where someone can literally sit there on YouTube and watch and sing and worship, and then grab their Bible and learn, and then, they could go through the entire invitation time, and they could just sit there and pray and deal with the Lord and kneel at their desk. That's fantastic. Now, long term, having a version on YouTube that is just the sermon, part 1 of Uncontrollable Joy, Uncontrollable Joy part 2, Uncontrollable Joy part 3. Boom, there's our 3 in that service, and you put that in a playlist. Now you got a playlist that is just joy, right? And then 6 months later, when we do something else having to do with joy or whatever, then that goes in the playlist. You see what I'm saying? These become tools that people can use to do further research, further Bible study. If you're handling your YouTube channel correct and putting the appropriate information in the description, you're putting the scripture references and links to them, you're putting, say, the pastor's bullet points, things like that. There's an entire community that lives on YouTube digitally. There's a guy in India, Joshua, who found us through YouTube. He's not on Facebook with us. He's on YouTube. So that's why I'm doing this, is for him. Same idea. Joshua could be a perfect example of someone who says, types in, how can I find joy? Where's the joy in my life? There's no joy in my life. He could be querying that in Google or in YouTube, by the way, the 1 and 2 largest search engines on the planet. He could be searching on there, and your service, your Bible study, your sermon could be providing the answers that are relevant to him. So, we don't want Joshua to have to wade through 40 minutes of praise and worship to get to the meat, right? Therefore, we have 2 versions. A full service, Tate Springs Baptist Church Sunday services, okay, and then a playlist that is joy, or however you want to set up your playlist. We can go over an entire playlist session if you guys want at some point about how to do it and why you want to do it and why playlists are so important. Anyway, close parentheses there. We're going to do that on YouTube. Also going to do that for iTunes. So, where are you hosting your audio and video podcasts? Podbean, okay? Podbean's great because you can do audio and video. So, you're going to have a feed of the entire service so that people that subscribe through iTunes on their Apple TV can watch the entire service, stem to stern, or they can subscribe and just get the Bible study portion, the sermon. Or They could do the audio only or the video only. So you're going to be doing that with both. So you're going to have the video podcast, iTunes and YouTube versions, each with a full version, each with just a sermon-only version. And you're going to do the same thing with iTunes for the audio podcast. You're going to have the full version that they can subscribe to, and they can get the entire experience audibly. And you're also going to have just the sermon portion that they can get because they just want the core meat of the Bible study time. The cool thing is that this seems like a whole lot of work, but it's not. Why? Because you've started off by sitting down, trimming the end of your service, of your live stream. You've got the time when people are just milling about, and you got some music playing and stuff. You started the stream early, you started the recording early, blah, blah. So you're going to trim that stuff off, and then if you have not added titling and things like that during the live production, depends on how complex or simple your live production is, whether you're going to do that or not. You may want to add those things in, okay? But anyway, you're going to spend 30 minutes, and you're going to get the service ready. You're going to get the audio ready, okay? And now you're going to render out a copy that's going to be used for the DVD. Great. You then turn around and render out the YouTube one. And then you're going to go in and render out the audio for the full-length one. And you're going to render out a version that is, say, 720p and 1 megabit or something, so you can get like a 500 meg file and not some gigantic thing you want them to suck down to their phone or their iPod. And that's what's going to go to iTunes or to your podcasting, your video podcasting service. Then you're going to do the same thing with the audio. Render out just the audio of the entire service, and then you're going to render out just the sermon. And you can like literally just cut right there and do a fast fade. I mean, it's really easy. It takes the 30 minutes that you've spent getting everything prepped for the one version that you're going to do, another 5 minutes, and now you've got all these other versions that you're stacked in and rendering out and ready to go. So that is just the publishing part of taking the live stream and making it more accessible and usable to everybody in whatever form or fashion that they want to consume this at. Now, let's talk about continuing the conversation throughout the week. You can do that by, like I said, you could take some 1-minute clips. If you've got the service has 4 points, each one of those bullet points, when he makes that bullet point, go to that portion in your service and trim that out. Now, my goal is always to keep these at 1 minute, maybe 2 at the most, but whatever the maximum is for Instagram, that's what I want to be the maximum here. So if it's 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds on Instagram for an uploaded video, then that's what I want. Anyway, the idea is to have these little chunks, and you may need to do some editing to trim it down and get it a little bit more nippy and fast, and get it compressed into that 1 minute to 1.5 minute time frame. Format it accordingly, so it's going to be like a square. It's not going to be horizontal video. You got to be thinking about the medium that you're on and where people are going to be consuming it. So on Facebook and on Instagram, what are people doing? They're standing there, holding the phone, taking a look at it. That's why you want to work within that size. That's why those square videos are working really well, because they take up the screen. They are visually capturing you, and you are more apt to stand there and look at it when it is using your device to its maximum capacity, visually speaking, right? Same thing with Instagram. So that's why you're going to do it. That's why I had that video. Let me, right there on the left, that's a square video that is optimized to work in the Facebook stream and the Instagram stream to make as much visual impact as possible. So the idea is take each of those 4 bullet points, and Monday one of the points gets dropped. Okay, try to get a little conversation on Facebook going around that point. Do it on Tuesday, do it on Wednesday, do it on Thursday. You're continuing the conversation. You're reinforcing what you went over on Sunday and keeping it front of mind and continuing that conversation. Now, at some point in the week, what you may want to do is around Wednesday or Thursday, your pastor could do like a selfie live stream and say, last week we talked about 1, 2, 3, and 4. This week we're going to be talking about 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think about X, Y, and Z, whatever it is? And then start transitioning the conversation from the previous weeks to what is coming up this week, okay? In a build-up for the live event and the live stream that's happening on Sunday. these little 1-minute clips can be, like I said, the pastor's points. They can also be little clips that happen through the church service. Little funny things. If you've got, at our church we had a little contest where each Sunday school department was tasked with trying to get the most numbers for each week for 4 consecutive weeks or something, and each of the staff members was assigned to, these 4 belong to you, these 4 belong to you, these 4 belong to you, and whoever came in second. So you got the person that won, that had, his little cluster had the most overall growth over 4 weeks. The person that came in second got a whole bunch of pies. So our pastor had to stand there on the stage, on the plastic, stand there and let the little children come by and give them a pie in the face. That video was perfect. That's a perfect thing to help showcase the culture of your church. So all these things kind of work hand in hand to help people experience your church and grow in the journey that is happening from week to week, okay? That is what I'm talking about when I talk about a content roadmap and how to maximize the usage of that 2.5 hour stream, or hour and a half, or however long your church service is, stream video that you've recorded, how to take that and maximize it. You're not necessarily creating a whole bunch of extra content. You're not going around shooting a whole lot more stuff. You're just more wisely using and exploiting the content that's inside, that hour and a half time. Anyway, I hope this, guys, has been really helpful for y'all. I do want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you guys are doing. I want to know. I want to see your streams. I want to see the work that you guys have been putting into it. And also, I'm here to help. So, guys, just be sure to reach out. If you guys are looking at streaming, wanting to stream, not sure where to start, if it seems like it's a daunting task or like this giant wall that you're trying to scale, but you don't know how to scale it, then go get the free guide, easychurchstreaming.com, and you'll see what kind of get an overview of what can be done and how you can do it. We go over the 4 modes of live streaming in there, and then we also talk about some examples and ways to tie these things together. Actually, there's some tips in there about how you can start right now, especially with streamy selfie or indie modes. You've got your phone, so you guys can actually start adding live streaming to your ministry today. So go to easychurchstreaming.com, grab that free guide, and I hope it'll be a blessing to you. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed week.